It started last autumn. I've been a park ranger for over a decade, and I thought I'd seen it all. Lost hikers, bear encounters, even the occasional idiot trying to impress a date by venturing off the trails. But nothing prepared me for what happened in Blackthorn National Park. The first disappearance seemed like a tragic accident. A young man, late 20s, went missing during a solo hike. We found his campsite untouched, his backpack still leaning against a tree, a half-eaten energy bar sitting on a log. No signs of struggle, no tracks leading away. It was as if he had simply vanished. A few days later, a family reported their teenage daughter missing. She had been walking just ahead of them on a well-marked trail, within sight the whole time, until she wasn't. They turned a corner, and she was gone. No sound, no scream, nothing. We combed the area for days. Eventually, we found her phone and one shoe, miles away, deep in a section of the forest that would have taken hours for anyone to reach. She'd only been out of sight for seconds. That's when I started keeping a journal. A week passed, then another, and the forest seemed wrong. I know how that sounds, but it's the only way I can describe it. The air felt thicker, the usual sounds of chirping birds and rustling leaves replaced by an eerie silence. Even the wind seemed hesitant to move through the trees. One evening, I was on patrol near the western ridge when I heard something. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, and not human. They echoed in the stillness, but every time I shone my flashlight in the direction of the sound, there was nothing there. Just empty woods. Then the strangest disappearance happened. A seasoned hiker, a man in his 50s, vanished without a trace. His friends swore they saw him just a few feet ahead of them. One minute, he was stepping over a fallen log. The next, he was gone. No scuffle, no sound. We found his hat hanging from a branch 20 feet up, a branch too high for him to have reached on his own. I spoke to the older rangers, hoping they'd offer some logical explanation. But their faces told me everything. They knew something was off, too. One of them, Greg, just shook his head and muttered, "The forest takes what it wants." Then came the night I can't forget. I was in my cabin, finishing up my reports, when I heard static crackling through my radio. A faint voice, broken, disjointed, whispering something I couldn't quite make out. It wasn't any of the other rangers. Their radios were off for the night. I stepped outside, and that's when I saw it. A figure standing at the edge of the tree line. Too tall to be a person, at least 8 feet, with glowing eyes that reflected the moonlight. It didn't move, just watched. I aimed my flashlight, but the beam barely seemed to touch it. My heart pounded. I blinked, and it was gone. The next morning, I found tracks near my cabin. Huge, deep impressions in the dirt. But they didn't lead anywhere. They just stopped. I don't know what's happening in Blackthorn National Park, but I do know this. People are disappearing, and whatever's out there, it's watching. If you ever find yourself here, stay on the trails. Don't wander off. And if you hear footsteps behind you, don't turn around.